Welcome to MCN. We're coming to you from sunny Barcelona for the launch of the Kawasaki Ninja 7 HEV. Now, you're either going to be incredibly excited by this bike or really turned off by it, because it's the world's first hybrid motorcycle. If you disregard a Piaggio MP3 scooter they did a few years ago, which really didn't sell very well and had 3 wheels, so it's a different thing altogether. Now, this is very interesting, and there's lots of kind of technical elements, so I'm going to dive straight into that and show you around the bike. This is pretty much an all-new bike. There's a few bits and pieces that are derived from development of their sports bikes, and the internal combustion part of the engine also is kind of very closely derived from the Ninja 400, and this new 451cc motor is also shared with the Eliminator 500, which is going to be coming out in 2024 as well. Let's run through some of the technical details on this. It's an all-new bike. There's a few bits and pieces that are similar or derived from the technology in their other bikes, but for all intents and purposes, it's brand new. We'll go to the engine first, because that's kind of the important bit. Now, we've got 2 parts to it. So we've got the internal combustion engine part, which you can kind of only really see on this, in all honesty. Now, it's a 451cc parallel twin, sort of fairly conventional, 6-speed, 4 valves per cylinder, so on and so forth. Nothing that interesting there. What is interesting is everything kind of backwards of that.
Working backward, the Ninja HEV's engine design gets more unique and interesting. There's a 6-speed gearbox, which is normal on the face of it, but rather than hand and foot controls for the clutch and gear selection, it's all automated. The ECU commands a set of electronic solenoids, which operates hydraulic circuits which do the clutch actuation and changing gear. The reason for taking those controls away from the rider is the hybrid system itself. The transmission is the point where the petrol and electric drive are integrated or alternated between. The liquid-cooled electric motor is integrated in the top crankcase, above the gearbox and behind the cylinders, in roughly the same place you'd find the supercharger on Kawasaki's H2 family. It transmits drive through a one-way clutch and a chain to the gearbox input shaft, after the bike's main clutch connecting the internal combustion engine with the transmission. An electric bike doesn't need the clutch function anyway, because it can't stall, and modulating the drive is easy to do with just the throttle alone. EV mode uses the first 4 gears with automatic shifting only, but it also means that the drive for the internal combustion engine can be disconnected or blended with the electric power as necessary. The ECU can disengage the clutch, kill the engine, and either switch to electric only mode, or in eco hybrid mode it can switch to electric only below 12 miles an hour and then return to hybrid petrol electric running above that. Eco mode uses automatic shifting as a default, and it changes gear to prioritise economy and shifts early, as well as using both drive sources in their most efficient way. So it changes up at 3,500 RPM, which is about where peak efficiency is, if not peak power. You can also change gears using buttons on the left switch gear. There's an up and a down, kind of like a paddle shifter on a mountain bike. Sport mode is button shift only and doesn't cut the combustion engine at low speeds. It gives you the best of petrol and electric power, and also has a boost function, which is a bit like something out of Knight Rider. There's a button on the right hand handlebar which gives you a 5-second hit, thereabouts, of the electric motor's peak output, until that extra draw on the battery causes the temperature to rise and it cuts the boost out again, returning to normal electric output levels, so the pack can cool down and function normally again. You've got 2 options for engaging it. You can use it at standstill for a fast launch, and that 5-second hit gets you up to roughly 40-50 miles an hour before boost disengages, or you can push it any time the throttle is open for a bit of extra pull, getting out of a corner or overtaking, for example.
Now, we've completed our sort of 200 kilometres or so, day and a half of riding, and it's been a really interesting experience as a road test, because usually you get off these bikes and you're thinking about the engine, the power, the handling, and all those sort of normal things that you sort of consider buying a conventional bike. But the experience with this is very different. Obviously, you've got 3 ways of getting up the road. You can go fully electric, you can be hybrid electric, or you can put it in sport mode, which is practically petrol only. And they've each got the different characters and their upsides and their flaws as well, because the thing to remember with this is very sort of pioneering. We were talking to the engineers last night, and we sort of asked them, why have you made this choice and why have you made that choice? And they said, well, we kind of didn't know which choice we should make in lots of ways, and they're kind of taking their best guess based on what they think is the right way to go forward, and then kind of like myself, we get on it and we kind of think maybe different. I guess the main thing I should say to start with is, for those of you kind of asking, is it fast, is it exciting, and perhaps expecting it to live up to that kind of Ninja name that they've put on it, that's not really what it's about, and that's a little bit misleading, if I'm honest. It's not a bike for thrashing around on. This is day-to-day transport where you're thinking about what kind of the best way to get into town and get around issues with zero emission town centres and zones in cities now. We've done various riding, a lot of it's been around town, but then we've also been out in the countryside and on some really nice twisting roads. And to be honest, that'd be the bit I would usually enjoy more, but actually it didn't fit the bike so well. And it's not that it's bad handling or particularly slow, it's just, it feels like an efficient utility bike more than a bike that's kind of up for a thrashing. It was going along with it, but that's not the bike's character. So in town it makes a lot more sense because you're going in and out of electric and petrol power, or you can switch to fully EV. And actually it's been really warm here, sort of 25 degrees C, and I've really appreciated being able to turn the engine off and not have that heat washing over my kind of legs and the crotch. So it's good for, I'm going to say 40 mile an hour or so, 60 kilometres an hour in electric mode, so that's plenty a lot of the time, so it's quiet, it's easy. The gearbox is worth mentioning actually, because that's one of the big plus points. It's a really well designed system and it shifts kind of quite neatly. My only criticism with it is the software doesn't allow for any kind of kick down or for it to hang on to a gear when you want to have a bit more power for overtaking. Now in the eco mode, which you can use as automatic, it will just change up at 3,500 RPM regardless of how fast you kind of want to go, how much throttle you've got on and that sort of thing. And it'd be nice if it just kind of recognised that you're on a kind of high throttle opening and kind of gave you a bit more RPM to get up the road. But as it is, it's really not very fast in that mode, so you'd either have to switch to manual mode or put it in sport mode, which kind of gives you more power again. And then sport mode, conversely, is manual only, and I thought that actually it could probably do with an automatic transmission shifting mode as well. The engineers were explaining that they've chosen to have manual only for sport mode because they think that's more exciting, but pushing two buttons is not the same as pulling a clutch and prodding a gear lever with your foot. So I didn't find it that exciting anyway, and I'd be quite happy to let a well thought out electronic shifting mode do the work for me in that instance. But this is, again, it's not necessarily the wrong way to do things, but they're forging their own path here, and maybe most owners won't be bothered, and equally when you've had more than just a day and a half to get into it, you'll get used to it and you'll find that actually that works really well for you. The next thing I've kind of got to address is, who's this for? And they think that people will use this for fun at the weekends, and honestly I don't think that's what it's about. What it is it's more exciting than an electric bike, but it's obviously not as dynamic as a petrol bike. And I think this bike's strength is commutes where you kind of live outside a city and you've got some maybe dual carriageway at sort of 50-60 miles an hour, and then obviously you're into heavier traffic where you would appreciate the automatic transmission, the electric assist and general sort of benefits of a hybrid.
Kawasaki say that boost gives the Ninja 7 initial acceleration to beat a litre bike, which from our experience is a bit of an exaggeration, but it definitely makes it a lot more urgent, because most of the time the Ninja 7 feels exactly like what it is. It's a sub 60 horsepower bike that weighs well over 200 kilos. And it's not a bike for thrill seekers for that reason, but it does the job of running in city or suburban traffic really well. It's also really easy to ride, it's not taxing in any way, and the lack of heat when you run it in EV mode only is a real bonus in heavy traffic, as we've experienced on the launch. The chassis doesn't really live up to the thrill that the Ninja tag promises either. Again, it's more of a functional commuter, although it's surprisingly firm, which gives it a good level of suspension control so it doesn't pitch back and forth too much, at the expense of being a touch harsh at times through potholes and over big bumps and things like that. Brake's pretty basic too, but it's also not a bike you'd ever ride really fast, so it's not really that much of a problem, and the long wheelbase means that it really digs its tyres in anyway. So everything that it does have in terms of braking power you can use confidently. It's got a decent enough ABS system as well. It's not a really refined IMU system, but it's also not that intrusive when it does cut in, so there's no real complaints there.
Big question we've got to answer with this is economy. Kawasaki say, oh, it's not going to be all about people that are kind of economy conscious, but why would you buy a hybrid and sort of not worry how much fuel you use? And the idea is that you use less of it, you put out less tailpipe emissions. They claim 76 miles per gallon, which equates to 3.7 litres per 100k in metric. Now, the bike's dash has a fuel economy readout, and there's only one time when I've got it as high as 3.7 litres per 100 kilometres, which is quite interesting, and I did a very rough calculation based on the kind of range readout. And if that's correct, it's going to be looking at up to 88 miles per gallon in some of the riding that we've been doing. which is interesting because most bikes and most cars for that matter, they don't achieve anywhere near the claimed figures, and this is threatening to do better. And actually I think it needs to, because if you consider Kawasaki say there is no competition, but I think there is. I mean, chiefly there's the Honda NC750S, which is highly efficient. It's got a DCT gearbox if you opt that as well, so it's got that same kind of semi-automated system as well, but it's a lot cheaper. So for this to feel like good value, it's going to have to do really extraordinary miles per gallon, because people are regularly getting 70-80 miles per gallon out of those anyway. And even bikes like the V-Strom 650, they're very fuel efficient and they're dirt cheap as well. And actually, if you consider that this bike's kind of natural habitat is below 60 miles an hour, you could then consider a big scooter as well, something like a Honda SH300, something like that. So we're going to have to do more testing with this in the UK and think very differently to a normal road test where we'll just go out in the country and have a bit of fun and maybe a bit of town riding. We're going to have to kind of examine these practical factors as well and really assess it in those conditions, because we don't have the luxury on a sort of press launch of filling the bike up and then measuring the fuel consumption the next time we fill it and calculating it accurately. All in all, I've been very impressed, because I mentioned before the Piaggio MP3 hybrid, that just didn't work at all. There was no benefit to it at all. Whereas this is a really fuss-free, nice way to kind of get into work. It's kind of relaxed, it's smooth, it's quiet, especially if you don't turn the engine on. And some people are going to like it. I mean, maybe those people enjoy hybrid and electric stuff anyway, and they've kind of already invested and got themselves into that way of thinking. But as a normal motorcyclist who enjoys fast bikes and enjoying that kind of visceral feel of an internal combustion engine, it hasn't turned me off. I'd gladly ride it again, and actually I look forward to riding it again in kind of sort of more typical circumstances and getting to evaluate it again. I'm really interested to see where Kawasaki take this, because this is the first generation of the bike, and it's a really good start. There are things that can be improved, but Kawasaki are going to bring out more bikes. It'll be interesting to see who's going to buy this and how they receive it and the economy they get out of it, and then where Kawasaki go from there, because they've been really surprised by some of our feedback and have sort of taken that on board and obviously furiously making notes. And I suspect that the next generation will be kind of markedly different again, and because this is just the start of the journey after all. But as a start, it's a great start, and I've been really impressed.